It's not my problem. It's not my problem.
All right, welcome to the Prospect Podcast on a Monday morning. Amazingly, we dodged the snow, but people in the South did not, which works out well for us, not for them. Maybe the polars are flipping. Maybe we'll get Miami climate weather eventually, or something like that.
Keep praying.
We'll switch around, and somehow we will have made the right choice.
Wishful thinking, Coach.
Yeah. I'm Coach Schuman. Welcome to the Prospect Podcast. I'm with Coach D, as always. Nice Monday morning, starting it off. And we have a fantastic guest today, the interim coach at Moravian University, Coach Mike Kane. We're excited to talk to him. Just a little bit about Coach's background. Coach is a PA guy. He played at Westchester University, coached at Wilkes. He was the offensive coordinator first in high school at Liberty. Did you coach when we used to coach there? Well, we'll get to that in a second. I'm from UConn. He played with me. I thought he was at Liberty back in the day, but coach at Wilkes University, and then was at Muhlenberg for a couple of years, a wide receiver coach. Then went on to coach over at Moravian. He was wide receivers coach there, became the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach in 2022. Now is the interim head coach at Moravian. So we're excited to have Coach on. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think who was at. I can't believe I just forgot his name. Tevin
Brand.
I thought maybe Heinrich wasn't at Liberty. I'm trying to think where Heinrich was at. He was our center.
Heinrich was at Becca.
Where was he at?
Becca.
Okay.
He's at Catasauqua now.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we're recruiting a couple of those guys right now.
Oh, you are?
Yep.
Yep. We played with him in college. Actually, he was a real good center, but then he had a neck injury and was done.
Oof.
Yeah, real good guy. Coach, I quickly dive into your background, but if you could go into kind of your playing coaching career, kind of what led you up to this point.
I guess playing career is not that interesting. I didn't actually play football at Westchester.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a pretty average high school player. Had some D3 interest, but I ended up at Westchester because my best friend was playing there and would not have competed much. So I was on the rugby team there.
Okay.
Yeah. Just did a study of the history of football. Played rugby. But it ended up working out.
Right.
But the Coach Zwan Sr. has always treated me like I did play as I've gotten into coaching. So I actually started coaching when I was still in college. My first job ever.
There we go. That's like, it's so crazy. That's not to interrupt you. It's just so crazy. Like, this has been like a little bit of a trend that we've had recently with some of the coaches that we've talked to. Guys, just they either got into it right out of high school and jumped into it, or they were in college and saw the writing on the wall and was like, okay, let me get into it sooner or later. So it's great. It's literally probably like 4 of the last 6 that we've had.
Yeah, well, I transferred into Westchester in the spring and pinched a nerve in my neck playing rugby and decided then I didn't need to get hit anymore. Also, my roommates were on the team. They're over 300 pounds, and I really didn't want to hit them. But so I started coaching freshman football at Westchester East. I was the wide receivers coach and linebackers coach of the freshman team my first year. From there, I took a job or position, I should say, not a job because it wasn't paid, at Lafayette. Because I'm from the Lehigh Valley. I'm a Lehigh Valley native, went to Saucon Valley High School. And all I did there was write down defensive huddle calls. I pretty much filled in for her players. Coach Luce then got me over to Muhlenberg with Coach Donnelly when he was there at the time. So I was a wide receivers coach there. still unpaid. And then I got my first paycheck my third year there. I was a part-time coach there. Coach Brown, Trey Brown, who's back at Muhlenberg now, got the head job at Wilkes, brought me up there full-time. I was still living in Bethlehem, and Wilkes wasn't going great, so I ended up at Moravian for a while. Our first son was born 10 weeks early. So we made the decision for me to be a stay-at-home dad. So I was part-time when I got to Moravian. And then went to Liberty for a year as the OC with Coach Dano. And then the next year was fortunate. Coach Puxon brought me back to Moravian. He moved on, and then Coach Long was actually a player at Muhlenberg, and then we worked together at Wilkes. So I was fortunate. He was happy to keep me in my role there. And then now he's moved on. So for the second time, actually, I'm the interim head guy here. The first time through, though, after the 2022 season was not the right time for me to be a head coach at the college level. So I didn't pursue the position. That's different this time around. Right. Working as hard as I can, hopefully, to remove the interim tag.
Explain a little bit what it's like when you come in as the interim head coach, because that's probably, I would say, often misunderstood, like from the outside too, and to maybe even other coaches. Because last time you said obviously you served more as an interim coach with no intention of being a head coach, right? Which happens sometimes. And then we talk about this time where you're serving as the interim coach with the hopes possibility of becoming a head coach. Talk a little bit what that is like, that interim role, and kind of what's expected of you from that standpoint.
So to be honest, it's a little easier if you're not going for the position, having done both.
Shit. Yeah.
Everyone's a lot more honest with you.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Shit. You're like a placeholder, right? Like it's just, oh, dude, that, whatever. Like they're just willing to let whatever fly. Absolutely, hell yeah.
The big thing to focus on both times is we've got to still recruit. Whatever the outcome is, that's how you're gonna either one, keep your job or get a new job. Got to be able to recruit. And then both times I've really just focused on keeping things running.
Right.
Last time was a little different because it was earlier in the off season, so there wasn't as much to do. Like Coach Long was in place by the time we came back from winter break. Whereas this time around, he was just starting to leave as we were coming back from winter break. So there's just been a lot more to do. I've had to like, we provide team sneakers for our guys for workouts. So first time ever, I'm having to go through and buy the entire team sneakers using some of the software.
Which is something most D3 programs don't do, for people listening. Like most D3 programs don't get shoes, dude, just so anybody knows. Like you don't get them.
We're very fortunate with our alumni support. It's something that we need. They usually come through.
It's awesome.
So yeah, we do 80 pairs of sneakers right off the bat. That was like one of the first things I had to do. But excuse me, both times it's just been kind of stay organized. Right? Like I'm whether it's on the field, off the field, I like to try to stay as organized as possible. Just be consistent with the guys. We're fortunate. I'm fortunate right now. The rest of the staff is here. No one else has left. So we've been able to really have some continuity. And I don't necessarily have to do everything. Like grade checks and checking in with guys, being at breakfast. There's other coaches here working on that stuff. So right now last time it was more keep everything running, recruit, make sure the program's in as good a place as possible. This time all those exist, but it's also, hey, let's focus on showing that we can all do, the next role. Let's be successful with that stuff as coaches.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. You mentioned that like it's different from being when you're pursuing a role versus not pursuing a role, which probably creates some different challenges. What going and transitioning, did you coach last time when you were interim coach? Was it also in the off season?
Yes. Yeah. Never a game.
Never again. Okay.
Never a game. Yeah.
So in the off season, that has to be a difficult thing now with the, fast forward with the transfer portal. That has to be something, or is it? I'm not sure actually. Is that something that's was a little bit of an issue at all, or not at all? When you guys went through that part of the season, and now
we actually hit it more with high school guys.
Okay,
they're a little, hey, I'm not sure who I'm going to play with, or
right,
who I'm going to play for. And I'd kind of like that ironed out before I commit. Like we had a couple guys we had that conversation with this weekend.
Okay.
Hey, I'd love to be here. We've gone through all the steps. We got the finances on the table, but I'm just not sure, until I know who the coaches are. Transfers, I've not heard it as much. Now, the portal has really changed things, but Moravian's always been a school that brought in transfers. They make it pretty easy. We have really good transfer admission staff. They do a nice job with credits. So we've always had those guys. It hasn't really come up with a transfer of, hey, I'm not interested because of the interim situation.
Right.
We haven't heard that, at least.
Very, very interesting. Good.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing too, right? Because honestly, when you look at it, like, you're going through this process, you're getting recruited by Moravian and it's one coach. I think to have the continuity of the interim being a guy on staff is a big thing too, right? Like even if you weren't the coach directly recruiting that student athlete, they still know it's somebody that's been there, that understands it, and that is looking to become like the guy, right? Whereas previous, that's probably a different type of conversation when you're recruiting somebody like, well, you're the head coach. Are you going to be the head? No, I'm going to just continue my role as coordinator. And then whoever that could be, a little bit. Recently, look, I had a student athlete last year who was, TC&J was dealing with the same thing, right? They had a guy in place. It was an interim, and straight up, like he would tell it, like as he went, when he would list TC&J in his top 3, when other guys asked him, the first thing they would throw out was, hey, like, what do you mean TC&J's in your tops? Like they don't even have a coach. Like, you know what I mean? Like guys negatively recruit. It's part of the game. It's what they do. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or whatever. It's not how I would do it, but it's how guys do it. They will throw that, out there, and he dealt with it every place that he did, every time he listed them as that. I mean, is that something that you have to, are you worried about that, or is that something on your mind as you're moving forward in this recruiting cycle? Because like you said, like the lifeblood of any program is recruiting, right? And that's really your main focus, is getting those guys in the building.
So we're going through the interview process. They're in the process of a search. So the interim tag's not for the season.
Got it.
Just for hopefully the next few weeks.
Sooner than later, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have everything wrapped up, and it'll either be me or someone else. So not really. Like my kids are 7 right now. My oldest is 7, but like full disclosure, it'd be tough for me to tell my son to go play for a guy who's coaching as an interim. So I get some of the hesitancy from recruits. Like I don't necessarily blame anyone for that. The thing we focus on too is we give them a little bit of, hey, if we get this is how it'll be.
Right.
We want you to get to know us. But then we also really hammer the stuff of Moravian's been here for 285 years. And it's a great place. It's in a great city. It's in good financial health. Like it's going to be here for 300 more years. There's a lot of things on the visit that won't change no matter who the head coach is.
Right.
And even the schedule, like our class schedule, our spring break schedule, our day-to-day stuff in season. I know the last 3 head coaches here pretty well. Schedule's pretty consistent because it's just the way it's going to work out to be the most effective. So we can talk about that stuff too on these visits.
Right.
And I think that helps people where they do have a decent amount of constants regardless of who the coach is.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting, kind of dynamic. As far as like, what do you see as the vision for Moravian going forward? If you were kind of to come in as a head coach, what is it you kind of see?
Yeah. So first thing that everyone asks is, "Oh, you're still going to call the plays?" And to be honest, absolutely not.
Yes,
I want to get,
finally.
yeah, I want to get away from it. You always have to kind of look at your resources on staff. Is that feasible with your manpower? But I first got here. I was fortunate. I coached a 1,000-yard receiver, Nick Petros, and he set some records as a receiver. He was in the top of pretty much every category. And then since Coach Paradise has been the wide receivers coach, most of those records have fallen to a guy named Jordan Bingham. And then we had another guy, Diego Del Castillo, challenging those. So one of the first things I would do is have Coach Paradise be the offensive coordinator. He was on the podcast a while ago.
Yeah.
And kind of went the same thing as when he took over for the wide receivers. It was like, I got to give him his space. I can't be too on top of him. So he's wording something the way I wouldn't word it. Like, the picture on film is fine. Let him do his thing. We're getting to the same place. So I would have him call the plays, and he's been doing our special teams. Did a really nice job last year. Kind of got lost in the shuffle because of our record, but special teams was a really strong unit. I came up as a special teams guy. So as the head coach, I'd want to do that. I'd want to be able to coach every guy on the roster that way,
Yes.
or every guy on the roster is dealing with me in one way or another, because I'd be in on field goal block as well. The other thing I would really like to do is avoid coaching a position even. My position would be specialist. And the big thing for that is it's Division III. We don't have 20 managers on scholarship here, like when you go to like your TV schools. So that would allow me to set up the field, right? Like Skelly's going on one end of the field, one-on-ones, pass rush going on the other. I can set up all the special teams drills, whatever we're going to next while that's happening. So the whistle blows, we can be fast, transitions quick, everything's set up. No different than, hey, we're going to have whatever, an indie period after, our normal down distance team, like O-line coach and D-line coach, your drills are set up. Like, that's what I'm going to do during that period, because I'm not coaching a position. I spent so much time with the quarterbacks the last few years, like you have to, but like I don't have an extensive relationship with a ton of defensive guys right now. And so that's something moving into the head coach role. I really want to change that and, make sure those guys know they can come in with issues and who I am and, just get to know me a little better.
And I don't think that's any fault of yours, coach. You know what I mean? Like being, as the offensive coordinator, like that's just really, it's one of the biggest adjustments, right?
Oh, yeah.
That high school guys to college guys really don't understand is like that field's cut in half once you get to that next level. And guys are only going one way. And for the most part, if guys coaching the other side of the ball that you're not playing know you,
Yep.
sometimes it's probably not a good thing, or it is a good thing. It's a little, the relationship is not as one-on-one as it is, when you're playing both sides of the ball. It's very different. And I love what you said about, as the head coach, because a lot of guys, that I've seen in high school be successful in doing it are guys that don't call plays one side or the other, because I think it's just extremely difficult to be, me personally, I think it's extremely difficult to be a head coach and call one side or the other side of the ball at any level, youth included. Like, I just think it's really hard to kind of manage everything and be so hyper-focused on that to the level of success. But when you're the special teams coach, and like you said, now you can work with every position group. And I'm biased because I've done specials every year of my 16-year career going forward, because I love that aspect of it. I get to work with the O-line, D-line, with, extra point field goal and all that stuff, whereas I wouldn't, right? So you get to work with every single guy on the team. And also it gives it a little bit of a kick in the ass in terms of like, hey, if the head coach is running all this shit, like it probably matters a lot, right? And I think players see that. And that's a different makeup to it. And I'd love to hear Coach Schu's take on it, because, he calls it, he's called it. I've seen him call things as a head coach and been extremely successful with it. I just know it's a lot. And, he does a great job with it. So I'd love to hear your take on it, Coach Shu.
Well, college is different than high school to me. So there's different responsibilities for college coaches that go far beyond player interaction, parent interaction. There's administrative duties that are really that high school coaches, you have some administrative duties, but it's nowhere near the level that you have with respect to recruiting, with respect to stuff you have to do with the athletic director and the athletic department, and then boosters and all those kind of things. So that's like you're interacting because you're a football coach, you'll interact with the president. Maybe the track coach doesn't as much, but the football coach is gonna.
Football guy does. He's got to rub elbows.
Yeah. So so I think that is different than high school. I think the biggest thing to me is you have to be true to yourself. That's the most important thing that a coach can do, and what you feel comfortable with in your role as a leader. And there are guys, Lane Kiffin, obviously, even though he has a guy that's an offense coordinator, he has a hand in it, and there are some guys that, Cristobal doesn't have any hand in calling anything, right? So it really depends on that. It depends on also where you are in your stage of your career too, of what kind of people that you are able to recruit onto your staff. I think that's a big part of it, as you probably know, right? So sometimes you are able to nail every coordinator position that you're truly comfortable with them calling that side of a ball, right? Or every side of the ball is taken care of. Then I think you're in shape where you can completely CEO it. And then I think you're getting a situation where maybe you're like, hey, this guy needs to develop a little bit before I turn over the reins to him. So I think there's different stages, and I think every coach has to be true to who they are and where they are in their stage of coaching, like what and what they feel comfortable with. I heard Sarkisian talk about it because I thought it was interesting, and he's at Texas, and he's very reluctant to give up the play calling duties. Right,
it's addictive. It's hard.
Right. And
so it's fun. So
right. It's fun.
It
right.
is.
One of the reasons you got into coaching was because part of it was fun. Right. So so that was it. And he said his thing was, hey, they hired me not just as a head coach, but they also hired me for my play calling abilities. Right. And so part of it, I think what you just said, he's probably also a little bit addicted to it. So in his mind, he's like, hey, man, like, that's my strength. If I give up my strength, I'm giving to somebody maybe in his mind is 90% of what I am. And is that good enough to win as many games as I need to? I feel like you can manage it. That's why I say it's important to be true to yourself. Like if you become head coach, the good things you'll be celebrated for, the bad things, everything will be your fault. So whatever it is you do, you have to be true to yourself as to what you're going to do. And I think that's really the most important thing, because what ends up happening now, obviously, the higher level you go, the more being a CEO is more important, I think. But you still have to, like, I use Nick Saban example. He still went out there and worked with the DBs every single day, right? Now, he wasn't the quote-unquote DB coach, but that's what he did. An individual ran over to the DBs. He wasn't floating around. He worked with the DBs. That was his kind of happy spot, right? Like that was for him, like, hey, I'm still coaching. You know what I mean? Even though I'm the head coach, I do all these different things. I still get every single day for 20 minutes, all the stuff that DB, I get to coach a position. And that was what, it kind of gave him as. So that's why I say it really is, to me, every coach has to look at themselves and say, this is what I want to do. This is what I think I'm most comfortable with. And then that changes over time. So, you may start out, some people may start out as the CEO and realize, you know what, this side of the ball isn't as good as I like it. I'm having a hard time getting the guy the way I like it. I got to go take this over. you might start out as a play caller, and all of a sudden you get an opportunity to hire a guy that is a fantastic, let's say, offensive coordinator. Well, you get an opportunity to hire a fantastic coordinator, a guy that you think is maybe even above you from that standpoint. Yeah, well, I'll step back and do it. And I think also the culture of your team, right? How do the players look at you? Like, what allows you to connect with the players is a big thing. So there are some guys, I think, that it's very important for them to float. There are some guys that have the ability within whatever their personality is to do a different thing, to call a side of the ball. And that's why I say it's just, it's knowing who you are, knowing what you want to get accomplished. And that's the most important thing, because then you have the opportunities to succeed. Because ultimately, I think as a head coach, those are the questions that end up getting asked of you as from the athletic director, or in your case, obviously, because you're in college, president, right? They're gonna they want to know that's what that is. So that's kind of my thoughts on it, which is definitely different from what Derek thinks of it is. But having been a head coach and been at quite a few places as a head coach, that's kind of how I always looked at it. I love being a play caller. To me, I enjoy being a play caller. I was willing to. I had given it up at different times at different places, and I like for a year here, a year there, and I felt like I did not do my team justice by doing that. Mm-hmm. So it really depends. So and that's why I like you have an idea of what you want to do, and I think that's the most that's
important.
Yeah, that's
a plan.
I mean, listen, college recruiting.
And self-awareness,
recruiting,
especially at the D3 level, Dave. Like where Coach talked on, like your staffing, right? Like, and I know Moravian's a little different, right? Like you said, all your coaches are in the building, and it just refreshed my memory, Coach. You have how many full-time guys on staff?
So there's a head coach and 3 full-time positions, and then we have 3. They don't get grad classes, so they're not GAs, but we have 3 interns that are on campus and in campus housing, and they're in the office full time.
That's a lot of staff for a Division III
7
program.
of us around all day, every day, and then
correct.
We have 3 part-time guys that come in when they're done with their real job.
So that's like, I mean, Dave, that's shit. How many of these guys have we talked to where there's, a head coach and a coordinator and that's it, or a head coach and 2 coordinators, but the one is, he's on campus when there's a basketball game or some shit because he's working, you know what I mean? But like, it's not like like you call them TV schools. I like that. Where these guys are full-time, this is their job, and they have 2 GAs underneath them, or, you know what I mean? Like the DB room itself has, there's safeties coach and then a GA, and then there's a corners coach and a GA and 2 interns with them, right? Like everybody has numerous people. Guys have their own recruiting staffs now where, hey, your job is only recruiting. Your job is to just coach. Like you don't have that at your level. So
college recruiting is obviously such a time-consuming thing at all levels because of transfer portal and high school, and they're totally different from a recruiting process standpoint and how everything is. That's what's so different from anything that like high school coaches can never fathom, is that like the level that recruiting is involved in the process, and that changes for the head what the head coach has to decide on what he wants to do, because that's such a difficult thing. What does you guys have had obviously a really, really, to me, you guys have had a really good amount of success. So you're probably in a potential driver's seat situation there if the whole process goes well, versus bringing in someone from the outside. Although I don't know, maybe there are other. Yeah. I don't know how the world. I know college is. Everybody has preferences, so it doesn't mean just because, right? So that's always the hardest thing when you're a candidate, as you know. You never know what who somebody else is talking to. The only until they really tell you if you're the guy that you really find out that you're the guy, and then you get, when they get to that point, you know what I mean. So, it's really that's always the stuff that's out of your hands. What do you like as far as what you think you guys have done really well at Moravian from a recruiting standpoint? What were things that you'd like to really improve on that you think you guys could really, go to the next level?
Our big thing right now is getting the guys to a target body weight. So between the staff, the strength staff, making sure they're getting there the right way too. We want them to gain good weight over a period of time, which also helps it stick. If you gain it too quick, you can lose it faster.
Right.
So we're trying to get to target body weights, and then we're really emphasizing a 300-pound hang clean. Those are the big things we're focusing on right now. Just developing the flexibility, the explosiveness, the strength. Are you balanced in your power angles from your ankles, knees, and hips? Those are our two main focuses right now. And then assuming that we're here in the spring, we're shifting a little bit from, we've done a lot of, just sort of trying to make the roster close in the spring. We're going to focus a lot more on individual development, actually. My thing with the coaches going into that is, coming out of spring ball, I don't really want to hear that a guy's stance still isn't good. I don't need them. We used to basically do our fall install and try to teach that piecemeal as best as we could. I'm less worried about the guys knowing the entire playbook versus their change of direction, their pad level, their hand placement. Those are the things we really want to focus on spring ball is make our pieces as good as possible. Because kind of what you've alluded to, college football's changed. You have a higher percent of your rosters new every year,
right?
Whether it's transfers or high school guys. And so that, building the team in the spring, we found to be less and less effective.
Right. Because those guys might spring is where, especially for, majority of Division III, majority of your roster is not in the building or on campus at that time.
50-50 now.
Right. And that's really where, the younger guys coming up make their name for it, right? The guys that are solidified, you want to make sure you're plugging those guys in, hey, we think this guy's our starter next year, but you really got to kind of figure that out. There's more of a hyper focus on the roster itself that's there. And that's where a lot of guys make that decision of hey, I didn't win the job in the spring. So you know what? I got to go elsewhere because I'm never going to get my shot here, or I'm behind this guy, or whatever that makeup is. And that's what I try to tell the young guys, after that freshman year.
They can't leave any. That transfer portal window's over. All he could do is add to people from the continue to add from the transfer portal, unless the only way they can get out of that is if they just literally drop out of school, and then they can drop out. There are ways that people can do it.
Always ways around it. Yeah.
There's always ways around. Guys could literally drop out of school, but theoretically, he knows by the probably near springtime, he's had most of the guys that are going to come in, who those are, and most of the guys who are going to stay. Right?
We should.
Yeah. Because that changed from last year. Because last year you were allowed to transfer in that other window, but that's changed.
They can always
D3s. Yeah,
they don't
D3s,
actually
they can just go.
They don't have to actually declare, right?
Right.
No.
They can just sign a piece of paper with
and go. Right.
Here's your release. Here's your release. See you later. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's more. We just we used to treat spring as really prep for the fall as a team.
Right.
Yeah.
The shift now I want with the coaches is spring is prep for the fall for that guy. Individual needs to be filmed, needs to be graded.
Like that.
Coach off that. And then the new challenge then will be, all right, 40% of this roster is brand new in the middle of August. How are we going to get them up to speed? And then how are we going to build that camaraderie and culture in 3 weeks?
Right. Because we've seen one bad apple pulled into from the transfer portal. Looks like a really great player on paper. Now he comes into the locker room and this guy's a total cancer. And it spreads like wildfire, right? You saw it a couple of years ago. I think the best example was Florida State going from an undefeated team, and then they went transfer route, and then you're talking not even 500, right? That's one of those things that's good, and that's double-edged sword when it comes to that transfer portal.
And that we only pursue guys that have 2 years. We don't want any 1-year guys that are only going to be on campus for, 4 or 5 months. Moravian's a small college. It's a relationship place. And we need guys that are going to be here for at least 2 years.
Right.
Fit in with that. So we don't even go after 1-year guys.
Is the challenge in the spring when you have to go and then so you develop those guys, are you kind of letting them know, hey, like this is an opportunity for you guys to get ahead of the curve before everybody else comes in, so you guys are ready to go to compete? Like, is that how the players, like you want them to look at it?
Yeah, we've been focusing on what we're the term we're using for it is competency. So they have to develop the competency to be able to do their job on the field. Size, strength, skill. And so spring and winter is their opportunity to develop that, where, hey, if you can't pass our conditioning test, you can't hang clean 300 pounds, like your competency isn't there. And that's going to be
conditioning test, by the way.
So our condo test, it's still in its infancy. It's only going into year 3. But what we got away from was running everybody, because I came up as a wide receivers guy. I'd have guys who didn't lift a weight come in and blow out their running test without training at all, and supposedly they've done a good job. And then I've watched really, really good linemen fail their condo test, and they were in good shape.
Right.
And so we got away from just running. What we do is a series of sled pushes,
Right.
based on your position, how much weight, with some running. And it's supposed to, the theory is it's simulating a 10-play drive. And so we want to see how in shape are you in a 10-play drive. And then what we're building is a break and then another 10-play drive. And the thought process is that's your ideal scenario as an offensive player. You're on the field for 10 plays, hopefully you score, kickoff, defense gets a 3-and-out, punt, you're back up. Are you in good enough shape to go out and play another 10 plays really hard? And then defensively, it's your worst case scenario. You're out there for 10 plays, they score or whatever, offense goes 3-and-out. Can you go out and do it again? Can you keep them off the scoreboard when you're tired? So that's what we're trying to find out with our conditioning test. So it's a combination of their strength, endurance, and speed. Like everything's timed.
Yeah.
And we vary all the.
Do you do it? What do you give them, like a certain amount of break in between each play? I guess.
Yeah. So they get about 30 seconds of rest in between their push and their run, and everything's tailored based on their position. So like our big guys don't actually have a running component.
Right.
They're just moving the sled 10 times. It's timed for 10 yards. If you don't get it in time, you're out.
Right.
If you keep hitting it, you keep going.
Right. Interesting. Have you seen a direct correlation with that on players' performance on the field, or is there no correlation at all?
In 2024, we did.
Okay.
24, we started a little slow offensively, but we had a pretty good year. Stayed very healthy, and then I don't know if we just cashed in all our good karma. 2025, we got bit by not consistent injuries. It wasn't a strength staff or a training staff issue, but just you name it, somebody had it. So I think more what we've noticed is guys are a little more consistent with their off-season list, knowing that you can't really hide from the test, because it's both cardio and weights. It's not like you can just do one or the other, and be okay. Like you're gonna be hurting if you're not doing both. And that was what we wanted. We wanted to get away from, hey, we're just running guys into the ground, or we're not running at all, and it's just all weight stuff. We wanted to find something that would combine the two, to come out as a conditioning test.
Very interesting. What do you think was like the bigger factor with some of the injuries this year? Just bad luck? A
lot of it was luck, especially with the season enders. Like we had a lower leg, nothing you can do. Just dislocated ankle. one guy broke his forearm. We had an ACL. we do let our guys play intramural sports. We lost our best receiver coming back to an ACL last year in intramurals right at the end of the spring. And then guy over my left shoulder here, Jared, tore his ACL in the third quarter of the first game. Just kind of a freak play, like third and goal. He tries to roll out, make a play, and just awkwardly landed and tore his ACL. So no, it was just everything. It was just everything. We were a little lighter as a team. Even some guys that had been here in 25 and in 24. So, I'm assuming we weren't as strong. But we were a little lighter, and we were young on the offensive line last year, and we knew that going in. We tried to account for it, but we had everything built to run through the quarterback, and when he went down, it took us a little bit of spin our wheels at that position until things smoothed out. That we played our best at the end of the year last year, but we had anticipated a smoother transition.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's tough when you have a really good year in 2024, and then it's not the same year in 2025, and you're like, okay, what do we do different? What was it? Obviously injuries always play a role. What do you guys set up as far as like typical practice schedule? Like, how do you guys go about it? Like, what's your philosophy going forward?
Yeah, so the way we're going to tweak it is I definitely want to shorten practice. I want it to go really fast. Coach Long's an exceptional teacher, and he loves to blow it up, and let's talk about what just happened.
Right.
As much as that was good and benefit us at times, like I know people that coach the NFL, people that coach midget football, they all complain about football IQ. So it's great to hit that. I just kind of want to change the structure of it where it's not happening on the field.
Yeah.
Get practice under 2 hours.
So you talk like coach off the tape a little bit more?
Yeah. Just there's pros and cons to everything. So blowing it up
on
in the
fly,
moment,
right? Coaching on the fly.
Blowing it up in the moment can be great because it's right there in front of the guys.
Right. It's fresh.
Yeah, and that can be really beneficial. But I'd really just like things to stay on time as much as possible, and to be shorter. To sure, longer practice. I'm going to script, and figure out.
It keeps guys healthier. I think it keeps guys healthier. It keeps them fresher. Like
maximizes your reps.
Yeah, and I'll probably tweak our week. We were a big no sweat Thursday team, which certainly had benefits. We were that way in 22, 23, and 24. We were very healthy all 3 of those years. Last year we weren't so much. But the other thing is Moravian was a program for years where we had 1 overnight trip every 24 months. We do 3 a year. In 2024 with the bowl game, we had 4.
Right.
So trying to get that thud practice in on a Friday now becomes a lot more challenging. You're getting on the bus late. The only other option is you got to bring enough guys to practice with pads and try to run a practice off site.
That's tough.
Yeah. So I think just for our conference covers a lot more ground than it used to.
Absolutely.
I think it'd just be easier to go back to that last physical day being on Thursday, and then our walkthrough can happen wherever.
Yes,
guys can just wear sweatpants. It's not a
lot of times it might be in a parking lot. It might be in the ball.
Yeah,
hotel. It might be. You have to know your kind of.
So you guys were thudding on Friday.
Yeah.
Before the game on Saturday.
Yeah. So it's I think Chip Kelly did it a lot when he was at Oregon. Kind of pioneered it with their pace of play. From what I've heard, it stems from track and field and rugby, where you take the break 48 hours before the game, and it's supposed to let your body recover. But because you're so far out that you're resting, you then need to activate. So we were pretty tight with the reps. We would script it where a guy should get about a quarter of the reps he's going to get in the game. Thud. And like full disclosure, we never had an injury on a Friday. We never did. Not one thing beside a guy out for a play just got dinged, like nothing. Like we never had anything that was added to the injury report on a Friday. So it worked in a lot of ways.
Friday, you'd be helmet, shoulder pads?
Yep. Yeah, and we'd script, I think offensively I had like 32 plays. We were shooting for 84 at the time, so we didn't want anyone over 21 reps. So substitutions had to kind of reflect that. Right. And then even your, every now and again we'd have a 3 getting in there, would be down doing scout team. He's still getting the physical, right? The wake up, the activation piece of it. So we did it that way for 3 years, or 4 years. But that's something I'll probably get away from. The only downside, I think the defensive guys I all worked with loved it. The only downside offensively was I lost like 12 to 15 reps that I felt I had if we were more physical on Thursday. So I had to kind of make those up on air and stuff that
and you would have coach, and you would break it down. I'm curious, like, would you have like a goal line situation type thing, or an inside the red zone type, like when you're structuring that thud? Is that still like you know what I mean? Because you get to that short yardage portion of it, and it just gets more physical. It just is what it is. Yeah. Or would you have a blitz period within that? Like, how would you kind of structure that aspect? Knowing, hey, it's Friday, we got a game tomorrow, we're still out here at helmets, shoulder pads, banging, but let's be smart about how we're really going to do this.
So we have always coached pace of play really high. So the guys did have a high level of respect for it. Right. We've always been pretty tight with them. But what we would do is we would do a normal down distance period, which would be 10 to 12, a third down period, which would be 5 to 6. And then we'd go red zone, starting high red, and just work all the way down.
And was that good on good?
No, it was against scouts.
Okay, because and
yeah,
but here's this is what I'm trying to get, and I want people to really understand this is, knowing how to practice and a tempo and a pace to practice is a huge piece to the puzzle of understanding your team and how you develop the culture within it. And you want guys to go hard, but you also want them to understand and play smart about it. And it's really difficult to get an 18-year-old third string guy playing scout to kind of go easy against the guy whose job he's trying to take, especially if he's not the one who's starting right now, right? Like, oh, if I show this guy up, or some guys think as twisted as this, if that guy gets hurt, I play. And I think that in itself, and I've heard Urban Meyer talk about that in its, I think it was when Dion wanted to sell tickets to the spring game and go against another team, right? He wanted Fran Brown and Syracuse to come out to Colorado, play their spring game against each other. And he said, the whole thing was, well, yeah, but you got to coach guys to stay off the ground and do those types of things. Yeah. And younger, immature players, they just don't know how to practice where, he compared it to you go to an NFL practice and no one's on the ground, ever, right? College and younger guys, that just isn't a thing. They're going to go hard irregardless of what it is for the most part. So how do you I know you said you touched on it a little bit with the structure and guys understood what it was, but I think the self-awareness of your team, you really got to know your guys. Hey man, I know you're a scout team guy. This is Friday. We're dialing it up tomorrow. So let's be smart about that. I appreciate your effort and all these kind of things. So how do you get that point across of let's be competitive and get the work in, but at the same time, we got to be smart about this. I can't have you flying all around, tackling guys, it's thud, but we can't have you, rolling down on a stretch play, taking out the running back. You know what I mean? What are we doing?
Yeah. So by the time we got to it, we're in season. So the things that we really focused on were being consistent with the whistle.
Right.
As the coaches, you got to blow the whistle around the same time of every thud drill. It can't get inconsistent. And then really it was just, hey, you cross the line, you're done for the period.
Right.
Whether you're offensive,
there's got to be repercussions to the actions.
Defensive player, you get a lineman, finishes somebody to the ground. Got to get them out. And then we always did a good job, one, showing them film of good and bad. And then two, I found this point got through to a lot of guys is we're not saying you can't finish a block to the ground because of the guy you're blocking to the ground. It's when he lands on your teammate's leg that he get hurt. Like he will be
rolled up on or some of this other shit. Yeah, it's
or
the
like
guys
you're saying in a thud drill, tackling the back to the ground. You're not going to hurt the running back.
No,
likely it's the other DB that's trying not to get involved in the tackle because it's thud, and you guys come down on his knee and he's got to yell. That's the guy that you're protecting. So we've always been real clear with that. Of it's not the guy you're going against that we're protecting; it's everyone else. And that does seem to resonate with the guys of like, okay, well, I'd like to keep playing next to whoever.
Right. Well, I think it's just interesting, Coach, because, Coach Shu and I have interviewed, we've had a ton of guys on, and the philosophy has really kind of shifted to less is more, right? Like, and that thud aspect of like, hey, the further away from the game, like that's just, the progression is we do less as we get closer to the game to kind of save us and our leg. And it's always been a thing, but there's still a group of, call it old school, call it whatever it was, that think, hey, let's bang around until we don't have, like, until the game, right? There's two kind of philosophies floating around out there. It's why I'm asking like so many questions, because I'm so curious to it. I think ultimately health everybody wants to be healthy. And we know that, especially firsthand for you guys last season. Like, you can see how one injury can derail an entire season. Some things can be helped, some things can't. I think a lot of guys don't even want to be in that position to have to explain, why are you going thud the day before a game? Something happens, right? Now, like you said, never anything with it. I think there's something to be said that if you keep that thud mentality all the way through the week, I think that says something, because when you tell guys to do something they're not used to doing, like, not thudding up or not whatever, it takes them out of that mental. It's this. I'll compare it to when I was playing safety, right, in college and whatnot. Any receiver that went across the middle, like, he didn't exist anymore, right? Yes. Like, you take that, now that's totally away from the game, right? Can't coach it that way. It isn't. Those first couple of years where now those safeties had been hammered into their minds. Guy across the middle, lights out. Guy across the middle, lights out. Those guys now, guy across the middle, they are pulling up. Right now, injuries are happening because they're not used to pulling up. Right. So in a bit of a comparison in that way, I think there's something to be said for keeping it as consistent as possible. But with this new trend, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a new trend. I just want to say more guys are more in tune to do less closer to the game. You're also taking away from mimicking the actual game, which takes away from their play. Right. Look, as a special teams guy, how many live kickoff reps do you get? Not many, right? So you hold your breath on the opening kickoff of the season and every game, irregardless, because do you practice live kickoff? Not much, right? Defensive series. Look, if the other team doesn't go down and score, like, that's probably on you as a defense. I mean, you're not seeing live reps to what they're what you're seeing, mimic the games type situations. It's really one of the most difficult things as a football coach is to get it as close to the game as possible. But I think thudding on a Friday gets it that way, right? So I see the benefits and the positives, but I think a lot of guys would hide behind the health aspect. Like, God forbid you have to go and explain why the start and whatever is not playing, because again, he was around the pile and he got rolled up on, and now we're talking about this stuff. But I think it's a great conversation. Yeah, absolutely.
Really, listen. I mean, the way that I look at it is because I remember when Chip Kelly, that was his philosophy, and then it got blown up in the pros. And literally got blown up in the pros. Like, not only were players like, we don't want to do this, but let's take that out of it, right? They didn't perform on the field either, right? So a lot of things, I do think a lot of stuff has to do with, obviously everything has evolved to being efficient, moving fast, getting ample rest, right? Like, that's kind of like an overall theme, I would say, right? Speed, ample rest, all those kind of things, letting athletes be athletes. But I think a lot of it has to do too with the relationship with the coach, the head coach in particular, with the players, which is a lot harder now, obviously, in the transfer portal. You have to be able to quickly get buy-in, quickly get them to understand that guys who all come from who knows what different cultures, right? Obviously, if you're bringing them into your school, you think they would fit. You wouldn't bring them in unless you thought they would fit. But you don't know, everything that goes on at every other place. And then obviously you have the high school guys and guys who've been in your part of your system already. So you're meshing all those worlds. So I do think that's probably what lends it more to that kind of efficiency thing. I mean, obviously everybody's, it's all over social media, what Indiana did and what his philosophy is, right? And you can't escape it to not see it. Now, does that mean it's always the way? What I do think is that players, and every level is different, so it's hard to say exactly. Like Division I players, what some of their stresses are different than Division III, like what they can do rehab wise and what they can do, even though even Division III schools have obviously ample facilities, but what they have available to them. Obviously, if someone's got $100 million facility, they've got different things available to them than someone might have a $5 million facility. But it's it is really interesting. It's a really interesting discussion because I think sports as a whole is in the transition, because it's not just football that's in this transition. You know what I mean? It's just that football is the most physically demanding as far as people hitting each other, which is why it's more of a discussion. And speed and direct power is at a premium in football, whereas other sports have some different things. Skill, yes, obviously quarterbacks have to have a certain level of skill, but pure athleticism is on stage in football more than any other sport because of the different positions and the roles that they need to have. Whereas obviously, you go to basketball and you have a really good player, but I mean, you can shoot the lights out. He's probably going to have a certain value to you, whether he plays great defense or not, right? Like there are certain specific skill sets. Baseball players, a pitcher who just pitches or just comes in the late innings has a very specific role. In football, that basically quarterback and kicker are those two guys, right? Like outside of that, there's a lot of guys that can kind of move around. If they don't pan out here, they go over here. So that whole overall development as far as their athleticism, power, and speed is become at a premium. So you're trying to get that to show up on Saturday at the same time that you're trying to get everything in that you need to get in. And it's a really, I think it's a very difficult balancing act for football coaches in the modern era. And it's important, that whole relationship between what is the strength and conditioning coach doing. Like, it's important to be like, hey, you can't be going and doing this, this, and this with these guys on this day if I'm going to expect them. It's not just your practices. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, it's a coordinated effort. And the higher level, the hardest part for Division III coaches is obviously you guys all have strength and conditioning guys to help out, but they have it much more separated at Division I, right? Like, this is the plan. We're meeting all day long. Like, you have different things you have to deal with than what they have to deal with. You have more roles that cross over where they can be more specialized in their roles. So, coach can literally go in and say, I need this level of freshness, this level, of output, this, and strength and conditioning coach, you don't deviate from this, or you have flexibility on this. And
right.
if you mess up, like that 100,000 plus job you have as a strength and conditioning coach, you are gone. Right. So D3, you could do that, but it's not as easy to find as many guys in that role. And you probably have assistant coaches that may even help out in that role, like checking in on them, or you might even be involved in that. Talk a little bit about that part of the whole.
We make sure that they're eating as a staff,
right?
As a football staff. We actually have 3.
I think that's crazy. That's, by the way, like the fact that you guys check that.
Yeah, we check breakfast.
Not crazy in a bad way, just crazy in that it mimics the higher levels of a standard of how important it is. because look, full disclosure, and this is obviously years ago, right? Like my last season playing at Montclair State was 2007, but off-season workouts, like, hey, you're in the morning, you show up either in the morning or in the afternoon. You got to be in one of the two groups. And you know what? Sign in and go. We didn't test preseason. We didn't track any of that kind of stuff. Like it was, hey, like season ended and we'll see you on this date when you get back from break. And we'll talk about what the off season is. And that was it. And there wasn't the level of coaching in the off season, I guess. I mean, it was more, I don't even want to say it was like a high school program, because there are some high schools that did more than we did. And not that it didn't work for us. It was just kind of how it was, because there wasn't a staff. Like the first spring ball I got there was the first year they got to use a ball. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many changes and things like that. And then the levels coming from Sacred Heart, which was at FCS at the time, right? Like where our season ended on Saturday and Tuesday, 5 a.m., you were there for a workout, right? So the fact that you guys even go into it and have those meals together sets a different standard for the players. You know, that I don't know if every program does it, but it's just, to me, it separates you.
Yeah, talk about that, Coach. Good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, our off-season lifts happen in the morning. We have two groups that go in. We can lift about half the team in our weight room. But we actually have 3 strength coaches in there full time. And they've actually gone out and gotten a few undergraduate interns. So
and we've had Coach Long on. He's been on talking with us about the program, which is why when you were talking about the conditioning test, like I literally drew it up when he was talking about it, like I had notes on it, because it was so different than anything else. So yeah, like the fact that we've had him on and kind of talked about it a little bit with him, you know what I mean? Like sets a little bit of a standard.
Yeah. But they had 5 coaches in there the other day with our team. And we're split in half, so it's only about 35 guys a piece right now. So that's pretty good numbers for them being monitored. The other thing beyond just them eating, like that, our strength staff in conjunction with our training staff, our guys have to jump on the vert mat in season, like every lift. So not only do they weigh in, they jump on the vert mat, and this is all stuff that Tom has taught me. Your vertical jump's the first thing that's going to dip when your body's overmaxed or overtrained or whatever. So like 2024, both the tackles lost like 5 inches on their vertical average in a week. So we had to pull their practice reps down, and they ended up staying healthy and playing all the way through the bowl game, played on 11 games. But the level of monitoring that our guys get is really, I think it's like through the roof with our strength staff. They do a really good job with them. And then our piece as coaches is echoing it and making sure that they're getting the same coaching point. And, we try to help them understand that you get like an hour to an hour and a half of training. What you do with the rest of the day really matters. You got to make sure you eat and sleep and rest and hydrate. Those guys can put as much weight on the bar for you as they want and demonstrate technique, but if you're not taking care of your body away from them, you're not going to get the results.
I think that's a big part of the whole thing, is that balancing act of, continuing to have the periodization within your program and that development, so they're at the optimal levels when you have them in the game, and that's the biggest shift overall. Like, me coming from track world, like that was kind of always, I played obviously football at UConn, and it was always it's very different from when I played in the 90s. Thank God, by the way.
Yeah.
My friends, by the way, it's actually very funny, because I listen to guys that I play ball with talk about things, and they're when you've been out of it for so long and you just only know a certain thing, they're so perplexed by certain things. But I like to tell them, of like, what we did was not optimal for performance. Now, it didn't matter because everyone did things that were
too.
not optimal for performance. So
No
this is one of
shit.
the things. That's one of the things that like older players when they spout on certain things and they're like, "We did this and we won XYZ games,"
Yeah.
right? And I try to tell them like that's absolutely true because everyone was doing things that were not like. I mean, when I first came to college, thank God Skip Holtz got away from that when he took over. When the guy who brought me in, he ended up getting fired, who I love, by the way. But like I mean, it was it was definitely beyond old school. We did triples,
Oh yeah.
my first 2 years, literally triples, and people are like triples. I'm like triples. Whatever our time we were up in the morning, I can't remember what it was. Practice, then right after lunch, practice, and then right before the evening, before we had dinner, practice. Like that's what it was. And they were like, "What?" I'm like, "Trust me." The
Yeah,
only
guys
thing
don't
is
understand
the
it.
calendar, and you just, you just checked off the day until for us it was Sunday because we knew that was church day, which meant we only had one practice that day.
Right.
So we made sure, like, hey, if you go to church, you don't have to go. We was in church. I mean, because that's how. So I like to help people understand that like you can't do things from that fashion because everybody was doing it that way. And
Right.
I bet you if you kind of started to investigate certain teams that were really the best teams, even if they had certain things that were similar, there were certain other innovative things that they were probably doing. I always go back to Nebraska, right? When Nebraska introduced a strength coach, we're talking a long time ago. Yes, everybody was killing their guys. Okay, that's obviously how it was back then. But they were lifting and sprinting. And so
Yes.
even though everybody was kind of getting killed back then, that was a differentiator for a certain amount of time for Nebraska, right?
Right. It's why every high school program in the country in the 90s and 2000s was doing Husker Power, right? Like everybody had the poster in their weight room because they were doing those innovative things that they were willing to do.
Right.
And Dave, how many times have we talked about this? Like those things, whether it's strength and conditioning wise, whether it's schematically with X's and O's, like there's someone willing to roll the dice, do something out of the norm. And when it gets successful, guys jump on the pony. And then it becomes, then guys look for new ways to innovate.
Coaches, the most important thing of all is getting the best. I always say getting the best players is your first step. Like everything else, there's plenty of guys who have the best players that can coach them wrong a little bit and they're still going to be fine, right? Like that's always number one. Like never, I tell people this all the time, never forget this because when you forget
Joe's will always win. Yeah.
When you forget that, you're going to be the greatest coach at 5 and 6. You know what I mean? But it's having the best players you can have that fit your culture obviously is always. But yeah, I do think that like a lot of the things that is coming out, and obviously the more research based it gets, meaning the more for coaches, you could say, hey, this research paper on this has been proven, you know what I mean? Because the hardest thing for a coach as a head coach, is like, hey, if we go in this direction and I haven't gone in this direction, my job is gone if I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, so that's
no doubt.
that always could stifle a little bit of it. Talk a little bit about that. I'm sure as a head coach, and you guys are always kind of, and the offensive coordinator, obviously, because there's no better person to talk about all the innovations than any offensive coordinator because there's a million things that are going on from that standpoint. So talk about how you balance that part of the game.
My biggest thing is always, does it fit our guys?
Right.
Yes.
Like, does it ask them to do what they're good at more and do what they're bad at less? So like when we had Jared, I'm convinced he was the smartest player on the East Coast. So there was no check with me.
Right.
Because that would just allow their defensive coordinator to get involved. Whereas if I just left it, the 21-year-olds on the field, he was always going to be a step ahead. So we didn't do check with me for years. And with him, it was sort of, hey, I'm going to break the offense down where all the other guys are really only going to have about 30 to 35 words in the whole offense. But you then have to put it all together. So I can give you different route combos real easy. You know, it's no reps for anyone else, and I can have a new route combo for you, but you got to be able to manage it and read it. And at the time we had him, we had a really sharp backup too, who, you know, could have won us a few games. So it was easy to invest that way and just say, hey, you guys got it. You know, like, I'll draw this stuff up, tell you what we're looking at, give you the likely looks. If they throw something weird at us, you just got to know, you know, what happens. So they handled all their own slides. There'd be times where they just tell the line, like, you 3 for those 3, you 2 for those 3. If that extra guy blitzes, I know where I'm going with the ball. You know, I'll just kind of adjust my hot route on the fly, which was great to have those guys. You know, that was so much fun as a coach. Carter graduated, and then Jared got hurt. And then it was, hey, we have to simplify some stuff. We have to make it where guys can just count to 4 and make a good decision. We have to take some off their plate. We tweaked our protections so that there's more guys in, less guys in the route. Like, you know, we went through 2 years where 5-man protection was where we wanted to be. Make you cover everybody. That fit us at the time. Whereas as we went through last year, toward the end of the year, we wanted to be in 7-man protection. And we're going to make it hard to get to the Q. His talent was to throw it far. We had some bigger receivers. Like, we're going to try to challenge you on the perimeter one-on-one was better for us. And so it's always just, does this fit our guys? You know, do we need our O-line splits? Do we want more space or less space in there? What's best for our guys and our running backs? So that's sort of always been my litmus test with, if we're going to try something new, does it fit the pieces that we have? Our punt is very non-traditional, and it's because, frankly, we've not always had a true punter. A lot of times it's been a position player. So the last 2 years we had a true punter, and he was 10th in the country and 5th in the country with our punt. You know, just being a little better at kicking the ball, it was all of a sudden this thing was flying out of there. But our footwork's very different. Where we stand is different from a lot of people. We're really counting on speed and more direction of kick than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. Like, what works for the players, what gives your group the opportunity to succeed, and that's obviously the biggest balancing act that you have as a head coach is making that the best situation possible for them, and that's always obviously the continuous challenge. What as far as, like, within what your career, like, continues to excite you about football at the college level? Like, you hear so much about, like, oh, this is crazy. That what is it that, like, excites you about college football, like, and some of the things that are going forward?
As a whole, I don't know if there's a bunch jumping out at me. You know, I do, particularly at this level, miss a little bit of the 4-year guys, the 4 and 5-year guys. We still have some.
Yeah.
We still have some, and that's great. Our graduating classes are probably bigger than when I started coaching, like the guys actually walking across the field on senior day, but the 4-year guys are less.
Right.
You know, and that's just how it is everywhere. It's not
right.
a unique problem. But I've always enjoyed watching guys have success after. That's always been a huge thing for me. Like Coach Long was a player. One of his teammates coaches for the Rams now, guy who I had in my first position room. Here we've had a bunch of guys go on to do some pretty cool stuff. Like, we have a senior now. I'm hoping ends up working with a friend of mine's company. That stuff's always kind of been my favorite. And that's part of why I've gravitated more towards college than high school is, you know, I'm sure you guys still have relationships with guys that you coach, but with us, it's like, oh, you're 22 when you're done. Like, you know, meet me at this bar. And
right.
before you graduate, and let's just hang out for a night. Like, I'm not in charge of you anymore.
Right.
You can make fun of me a little bit now. I can tell you some stuff I couldn't tell you 6 months
Right.
ago. You can tell me some stuff you couldn't tell me 6 months ago.
Right.
So I've just always really, really appreciated that. And then when I see guys like coming back, like I've been around long enough. A lot of the guys I coach have kids, and I've been in this region long enough. Even if it's someone who didn't play at Moravian, I'll see them at a tailgate, and it's, "Oh, coach, I'm married," or "I just had my second kid," or "I got a new job," and that's always been one of my favorite pieces of like the job, just that relationship. And you always talk to guys less than you think you will,
Right.
but
Of course.
that doesn't hurt it though when you see them, because you have more to talk about in that moment then. That's always been one of my favorite things.
That makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's one of the things about them being an adult, right? That makes it great, is that they are adults, and you can kind of have a different relationship post forward, which is really cool. Some of those guys may be coaching with you one day. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've got another former player on staff now. Played D-line for me at Wilkes. Is our D-line coach here at Moravian, Coach Ugwu. And now the way recruiting is, I meet these guys spring of their junior year.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if
You're with them through that whole process. Like,
if
you
we're
see
here,
them.
I have two guys I recruited.
Right.
I met them as juniors in high school. And
It's not so much a business type
way.
relationship, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you see that, especially look as a high school coach, right? Like when those guys walk in the door, or you get them in the spring of their 8th grade year and they haven't hit puberty yet, and then all of a sudden, like, here it is senior night, and you're watching them, and now they're playing at the next level. It's a different type of relationship. Some of my best relationships are with coaches from across the board, right? Whether it was a guy I had in middle school or high school or college, and you might not always like that guy at the time, and it's one of the things I tell my guys, like, look, like, man, you're probably not going to like me every single day, right? But I promise you, like 2-3 years after you leave, like, you'll understand like why I did what I did, or why I approached it like that, and those types of things. And there's nothing like getting one of those emails or a text message from a guy that you haven't talked to in a while. Like you said, hey, I just finished the police academy and I got a job, or hey, I'm getting married. Coach, can you come to the wedding? Or I just had my first kid. Because there's so much more that goes into coaching in this game than X's and O's. And look, you'll have some of those strictly work relationships, right? Where guy plays for you, does a really good job, and hey, it is what it is. You never talk to him again. That's part of it. But those select few that, I don't know, you just hit something with them, or you have that extra relationship, I think, and Coach Schuman can allude to it, right? Like the team he coached just went into the Hall of Fame, from one of his, good runs at a high school here. And he was shocked at how many of those players like went back for it. Right. And he got that to experience those conversations so many years down the road. Right. And like, hey, coach, like this really helped me, or this did this for me, things you just don't even know. And I think ultimately that's why we get into coaching, right? Like we do it because we're trying to fill a void for us, but also to like impact those young guys that, coaches did that for us. And I think a lot of people sometimes just get caught up in the X's and the O's and the winning aspect of it, of like, this is about development of a human being and a young student athlete over like a player, Yeah.
The other piece too is they pay you in adrenaline. Like it's a lot of fun. Going back to earlier, like the play calling, Coach Long's first win as a head coach, we score with like 20 seconds left. He's like, go for 2. So we call a counter jump pass and hit it. And it's, like you can't recreate that in many jobs.
Well, that's 100% correct.
No doubt.
Those moments are huge. Well, Coach, it's been phenomenal having you on today and talking with you and talking ball and best of luck. Hopefully this thing works out in your favor and things happen. But really, really great having a conversation with you. Football, it's amazing. Like every time someone thinks, "Oh, football's not going to evolve," it just always evolves, man. It's amazing.
Oh yeah,
And me and Derek were talking. I had this conversation with him about because football has like obviously tackle football at the young levels. You have flag football and 7-on-7. And then I would say like rugby is like the most foundational of all, even though it's not played as much in America, right? But it really like that's what the original football was rugby, right? And so there's like everything comes kind of full circle in this, like the rugby tackle and how we teach tackling goes, now, which has become the norm, goes back to rugby, which was probably being taught. When you were playing, probably in the 1800s was probably taught that way, right? That style of tackling. So it's very interesting how football continues to evolve and the things that make it better. And it's funny because you brought up the Chip Kelly thing. Like I remember when that was the innovation. It was one of the, I remember when guys were talking about it. It was like, should we do this? Should we not do this? I remember, and then when it all of a sudden changed too, like it was just, it's just wild how things continue to evolve. But that's what makes it great, right? You're always trying to figure it out. You're always trying to figure out what's best for your team, and that's that's what makes the sport very unique among other sports. Like, I mean, there's only so many innovations you can do in soccer. There's only so many innovations you can do in basketball. But in football, there's always continuous innovation that continues to happen. And sometimes it's going back to something that happened a long time ago, but there's always continuous, innovation. So best of luck to you, Coach. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Coach, thank you, man. Talk soon.
Have a great day.
Have a good one.
All right. Really good stuff.
Thought on Fridays.
What's that?
Thought on a Friday.
Yeah, I have some opinions on that. But yeah, it is
I get it.
Like coaches are, but there's like I said, there's a balancing act. Like there's some things that
got to know your team, man.
There's some things that are not worth it. Let me put it like that.
Do you think even like in knowing your team?
And like I've told you, when I first started coaching, I was I was a straight killer and wanted my guys to be straight killers. And that's how we practiced. But I evolved over time.
This is I get right. So this is what it is. Like when I'm at Bosco in 2012, okay, we're good on good every day.
Right.
Full go, full pads. Like we're talking Thursday full gear, right? And we're banging it out with one defense, one offense, right? Because you're two platoon and you're good on good. And it was that Iron Man mentality of just you're always going to get after it. And, 3-hour plus practices for, you know what I mean? Like that's just the way Toll did it. And it worked. Were there guys that were like, dude, we got to dial it back a little bit here. This is too much. This is, you know what I mean? Like some of those intricacies, 100%. But at the end of the day, like you knew it worked, right?
Well, I would argue this. So, because I remember how Toll practiced. I remember we went up. This is going long before you got there. When I was at Saddlebrook, we were up there for 7-on-7. And I remember watching the linemen literally do 15 100s. Okay.
Yeah, kill each. I'm telling you, it was
So
the conditioning was an hour straight of conditioning, right? Like in the summer, that's what it was. It was 7 to 8 after your practice was just straight conditioning.
So he was innovative at the time in this. He was a believer that speed was important, so he was going to make his linemen run. Okay, so that's what his linemen probably did better than everybody else. They probably were a little bit tired, but everybody was kind of still doing that stuff anyway, right? So, and he had, and you guys obviously had probably better players in most positions than other people,
right?
But the other schools were obviously still good, so there's still battles. But I would say that was a so like that's why I say like within a world that was probably crazy, which was how they did that stuff. He had like a slight innovation that
absolutely. Nobody was doing that. Like, you know what I mean?
one
Like,
was taking. I adopted it at the time with my linemen for years later on, because we said, we're going to make you guys like track guys, okay, like sprinters. So I saw that and I was like, well, I don't know if I can get my guys, like I don't know, when I was building, I didn't know if I could get them to I didn't know if I wanted to do 15 100s, but we wanted to do something like it.
yeah.
We got him on the track. I mean, we started that was one of, but I saw it innovated somewhere else. And I saw that and I thought, that's a great idea. Make your linemen sprint like track guys. Now part of it was hard for them, but you know what? They probably had physiological changes that happened that went beyond their strength, right? They were
Absolutely.
So that was kind of an innovation, even though I don't know if he meant it to be an innovation, right? You know what I'm saying? So when I saw that for myself and I said, I'm going to use that, right? So even though I was still probably practicing really hard and those kind of, I was like, I'm going to add that part to my repertoire. The other like for me, one of my aha things was, how could I get more speed without having a track next to me, because I was at a field. So I didn't, I was like, okay, what was one of the things I thought built like first or second step power, which was hills, right? So I happened to have a hill at Powell Park that went up to the highway there. It was literally 20 yards long, maybe 15. It wasn't that long, but it was high and it was like straight up. And they ran that every day and I wasn't thinking about it in the Tony Holler way at the time, but we actually did that sprinting before practice.
Right.
Okay. And just, without even thinking about it in a periodization way, that sprinting for practice over long periods of time, over years, got those guys better. Like we did they would knock out, I think 5 each day or twice. I can't remember if it was each day, but maybe twice a week we would do it. And we knock it out. And literally, we were just basically what you could say we were doing was overload sprints twice a week. You could, in the modern terms, before practice, which meant because I was limited on time, so I wanted to. I was still old school, and since I wanted to run them after practice, but the bus would come at an hour and 45
You didn't have the opportunity to.
They had to go, so I had to front load it. So it was an accidental innovation that actually worked. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, like, I'd love to, like the Husker. There are things that happen sometimes on purpose, sometimes an accident, right? That become things that end up working really, really well. I thought that Skip Holtz, back when we coached, getting rid of the third practice, and we all said, thank God when he did that. Okay. Right. And then every once in a while would only have us do one in a practice. I don't think that he was purposely innovating. You know what I'm saying? I just think he was probably thinking like, all right, let's get some guys some recovery here. And then he would also by making the practices flow faster, like we wouldn't go more than 2, I think 15. And then it was like, if he kind of went over, it would be a maximum of 230. Like we knew as players at that time, I think over the course of the career, by the time it got to the next players, like my senior year and beyond, those guys really were moving faster, playing faster. That's probably what guys were starting to go to back then, right? A little bit more, less practice. All that is now is like an evolvement from there, right? Like that's like, hey, if we were cutting it down back then and that started to help us, is there another level of cut down?
Right. What else can we do?
What could we shorten, make more efficient that could help them more? And then there's a point where it's like, okay, you can't go below this because we won't get enough in, right? So what is that? But I do think that they're going to go to shortening as much as humanly possible to see what maximizes performance.
Right.
And, I don't know how low that could go. I mean,
I think it's separate. It's obviously program to program or team to team. And I think it changes every year. I do. I think you kind of got to know the gist of it. I think it's also got to be on what works for you, or even maybe sometimes what you're allowed to or not to do, right? Until if you're a new coach and you get in there and all of a sudden you're saying like, hey, like we're never going to hit, right? We're never going to tackle to the ground, or you're doing something so different from what the previous group did, or if there's a tradition that's in place, like that stuff takes time to get across.
I don't think guys are taking people to the ground that much at the highest level in college anymore.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm talking more high school.
Yeah. And I think at high school, that's the gripe that a lot of high school coaches have. One of my things that I've actually like, I can't, it was so great talking to Jerry, because like, it's kind of things that you start to thinking now. He's a little bit more probably, I just listen to him. He's probably a little bit more regular tackling than I am. I'm not, but it's interesting because when you are with youth, when you're armed with high school knowledge or above level knowledge of where you're at, you actually think to yourself, oh, where can I kind of use what I know and then innovate that can make a difference for this team? And you can take a little bit more chances, because that it's nothing against most youth coaches, but obviously most youth coaches haven't coached at a higher level.
Right.
So
they're just there.
You're doing more innovation wise than these kids have ever done. So now you could kind of, experiment on things. And I had to say, like, there's like having kids moving fast and healthy in game day, and if you could figure out how to get more of your players good, and this was always a DJ Nymphius philosophy, and playing more guys, I think you'll have more excitement in your program and you'll end up doing better. Now, there's a drop off if there's a level that's, this guy to that guy's a big drop off. You can't just throw this guy in. But the more you're able to do that, the better your team becomes in the long run, because more guys play, more guys get better. If there's less of a drop off, right? If there's special packages you can put guys in, because the more game experience they get, the better off they get. And that makes it where you don't have to the next year kill them to get them ready. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah,
the more you can get them involved in actual live games, even maybe before they're ready, as long as they have the athletic ability to do it, and the toughness, obviously, a certain level of toughness, then you could get them ahead of the game. So the next year, you don't have to go, he's never tackled in a regular, like, we got to get him that experience. And I think that helps. And I it's high school is very, very different than when you go to higher levels, in the sense that I do think, depending on the place you're at and depending on the players you have, if your guys are tougher, if you're not seeing a level of speed that is, speed is a big part. Like when you face teams with real speed,
real speed. Yes, real speed.
And just being
collectively, not just one guy that can like take a toss and get around the edge and go. Like you're talking
team
or
speed.
You see a big guy that could really run, and you're right. Like
you need when you face teams that have that, then you can no longer just get away with like beating your kids up, in a sense, because what happens is they can't chase those kids. Right. So you have to get the most out of them athletically, as opposed to fit. Yes, football's always physical. Like, let me say that. Like, it's always physical.
Always.
But you have to get more out of them athletically. If they cannot get to the point of attack, it does not matter how strong they are.
Right, because you're not even there to make the opportunity, not to have the opportunity to make a play.
Correct. So that's a big thing. And interior-wise, obviously, bigger and faster is the key, right? Then that balancing act at the line level, because in high school you have different size bodies and stuff like that. But unless you're at the biggest, when you're at the biggest schools, I don't know, they're all big. You have to figure out how to get faster, I'm sure, because they're all big. So, and that's why I always see, like when I see, like when I say like people down here, what do I see that makes South Jersey really good? Speed. We see it when we play 7-on-7, right? Like sometimes you're like, wow, kind of a little bit outmatched athletically. It's not schematic. It's just a man on a man. So, and what do I always see when I play some of those South Philly, Philly area Jersey teams and Philly, when we go out to Philly, right? What do we sometimes have a hard time with when we go to PA is that just some guys are just flat out faster and can jump higher. Like it's not anything they're doing wrong.
And I think
we come out there, we're frustrated. We're like, did we do something? No, at the end of the day,
it's just what it is. And we also talk about like the further south we move, right? Like the faster the cats get. And we talk about like it's a bit of an eye-opening experience sometimes when we do that, when we're in Delaware and we have some of those Virginia teams or some of those other teams that it's a different level of speed, right? And, Mike opened my eyes to this down in Florida when he's like, Derek, you got to understand, like you might have one or two of those guys on your roster in Jersey, but I have 10 to 12 of these guys that run at this speed, right? And it's not just skill guys, it's the bigs. Like it's just, he calls it a speed state for a reason. Like those guys are fast across the board collectively. And now you take someone who's fast for their group or their team and you put them in Atlanta or you put them in Florida. You know what I mean? Like it's a different level. You're the first one to say like 100-meter winner in the spring here in Jersey at the Meet of Champs might not make the podium in Texas. Like,
no, the first guy might, but everybody else is not. Like what I've seen in Jersey is, or you might get 2 or 3 that can compete.
Of course,
but you're not getting, let's say in the 100-meter, you're not getting 8 that could compete with their 8. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
you're like, wait, what were the top 3 times there? Okay, that's 9, 10, 11 here, or you know what I mean? Or
Derek, you could probably go and when these sites used to be free, I used to love it, but the track sites are smart. They now are making money, so they charge.
What do you mean, there's a paywall?
Yeah, they all pay, because you know what it is. All the track results go through these 2 sites. So the coaches,
it's like flow wrestling, like that used to be. You know what I mean?
All the results in there. So
Max
you want to get your results, you got to go there. So actually, it's the best business model ever. I mean, like, you would never think a sport like track or wrestling, which is in America, it's popular for high school kids to participate, but it's not popular fan-wise. But those 2 track companies, I guarantee you do very well because
damn right.
You don't have 10 of them, right? You're not going to have 10 of them. You have 2. So, but those 2, I mean, Mile Split and I think it's Athletic something. And that's where I go to get all the track results. And if you were to go on there and probably,
which I love, by the way.
What's that?
I just love that. Like my eyes, obviously, since I'm working with you, has been, looking at the track results, and obviously Mike down south, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, that's great. 40 times and whatever, but what's his 100 time? Which college coaches, they ask those questions, right? Like, what's his 100 time, or what's he doing track, right? The correlation between high level football players and track is ginormous. And again, didn't grow up with it, never did it, didn't understand it to that level until like I got around you and Mike started to open my eyes to it. It's why his football team trains on the track, dude. Like that's what they did. You know what I'm saying? It's part of his conditioning. It's all that kind of shit. I love, and I really like, the conditioning test conversation is an amazing conversation in itself. What they do at Moravian, like when we had Coach Long on talking about with the linemen doing the sled thing and the mimicking of whatever it is, because it's obviously something that's come into question with the way training has evolved and done it. Like, I always reference, like, I had 16 110s to do at Sacred Heart, and a lot of guys died and never came back after that. Or guys would train and say, okay, my conditioning test at FDU is a 300 shuttle. So I'd be training 110s in the summer. This guy would be training a 300-yard shuttle. And then some guys would be like, we don't even test. Like, we don't even need to worry about any of that shit. Just go play ball. But I think it's a great conversation of like, do you test? Do you not test? Coach referenced it like when we just talked to him. He would have really good linemen fail their conditioning test, and they're the best guys out there because it's a test. It's not what it is. You know what I mean? So those types of conversations and questions when it comes to it, like the evaluation of players going into it. And like he said, 2024, they were healthy. 2025, they weren't healthy. It's not that they changed a bunch of shit. It's just things happen and kind of whatever. Or he said he had guys lighter, or it's just, sometimes it is what it is. But I think you can always question, change, tweak, look to do things different, evolve, right? Every year there's going to be something. I want to try this. I'm going to do this, or whatever it is. I like the approach that he talked about in that for spring, because of it used to be, look, like here's your fall install days 1, 2, 3. That's what we do in spring. Now it's going to be, let's focus on the kid more, or the athlete more, technique wise, stance wise, those types of things, the individual rather than collectively as a group, because we don't know if this is even going to be the group come fall. I think that's a big, big, big change in the way coaches approach the spring, or that aspect of it, to coach the individual more so. And look, that's not saying that even if you do it the other way, where you're install and you're not coaching individual skill and technique and doing those things, you're just hyper focusing on it more because that's the good of the group. That can all come in the fall, or you're hoping, right? Like, yes, we're going to try it this way and we'll see what happens. Can these guys come together in 3 weeks so that game one, everybody's on the same page? That's a question, right? But you got to be willing to roll the dice and change some things if you want to, get better.
There's no doubt.
Also, losing your starting quarterback week one is a fucking problem.
Well, that also goes to, there's also a lot, like there's a lot of things that I think college coaches, and the higher level they are, the more they're starting to evolve very quickly, because they're just going to get fired. Like, so, and again, everything always goes back to getting the best players you can. But in our area, and like it's you're in a bubble in Monmouth and Ocean County because it's a beautiful place to live. Okay. And sports are really important. So you have enough athletes to compete just within your world. Okay.
When you expand,
like there's a ton of local travel. You have no problem finding another team to play, a club. You have, because sports are such a big deal. Part of the negative of that bubble is that it's very easy to end up limiting yourself. I think now there's a balancing act. Like, I don't think you need to go crazy, right? I don't think you need to go travel the world, but I think it's good. Go compete against some guys from Philly. That'll tell you some things. Go compete against some guys from Newark or North Jersey or New York City. It's not far, okay? It'll tell you some things, right? It'll tell you where you are. And it's good for those athletes to go compete, right? Because then they'd realize, okay, I might be super athletic. Maybe I need more skill in an area, right? So it's like the classic basketball game, which I think is the most interesting rivalry in all of New Jersey basketball, is Manasquan versus Camden. Okay. Two phenomenal basketball programs, two completely different environments, completely different worlds, probably are good at different things slightly. I'm sure they're both all, as far as the way they play basketball, and you don't get that far without being disciplined in your game. But as far as styles, probably different styles, both very, very successful, right? And that can happen, right? But until Manasquan started going competing with Camden, and Camden started going and competing against Manasquan, they didn't realize either group had to change slightly into if they wanted to be the best, they would have to continue to evolve. And that's why it's back and forth. Those teams each year obviously they get different players each year, but they have to continue to evolve their game because one group is a little better at this part, the other group's a little bit better at this part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I find it to be a very, very, it's not about race. It's the culture of where they come from and the style of play that they have and the type of athletes they have. And they're both equally great, but it's a battle every single year. It's a really and that's why, like in the shore, Manasquan's, and you're the guy coaches with you, obviously, right? Willing to do that, willing to compete, right? He's willing to compete.
I mean, I asked them hey, what, I mean, majority, if he has the option to go and play, like he has no local weekend games because they're traveling to this tournament, they're going to that tournament.
Needs it to get better.
Where he can now, otherwise, again, and we reference it with football a lot, and the private by you who's kind of pigeonholed into playing a certain type of schedule, right? And just not seeing the level of competition like the teams up north see every week, week in, week out, week in, week out. So what does he do? He goes and he schedules DePaul week 0, right? To try and dial it up, or he gets a middle town from Delaware to come and play, because you have to do those types of things. If you just stay in your local little whatever, that's all you're seeing. And I think some guys are scared to venture out, but at the same time, that's the only way you're going to get any better is if you see these teams that are better or that do things a little different, right? We're all trying to win, but you got to see these things. And if you don't, even for individual players, get on that travel team that goes a little bit outside of that area, or because you might be good in your little AYF league, but guess what? What happens when you go and play a team from this place or some of that types of stuff? And it can be calculated too. Right?
Environments can become uber competitive, okay? And you can
no doubt.
So it's honestly, I think one of the greatest. It's probably not great for the kids, but because I made that move that I didn't think anything of doing when I did it, but moving to the cross town from being from this side of town, and I know, and the uber competitiveness that goes back and forth has elevated all of our players, all of us.
No doubt.
And those kids are all elevated, right? And it's now people are like, oh, is it going to continue? I'm like, all you're going to see is the gap just widen between these groups and everybody else, because we happen to have a group, each of us that are in town that are very competitive, and they're all pretty good athletes. So they're all training now. They're all competing all the time. They're all trying to figure out, and they're 3-sport athletes and stuff like that, but they all play together, and then they play against each other. And so, and they all play in clubs where they play outside, and then they play against each other again. There's no relaxation environment for them, in the sense that
they're always on the go.
They're always on the go, and they love to compete, which if they didn't love to compete, it wouldn't matter. But they all like to compete.
Right. So, which adds to that whole conversation of where is the separation of rec,
people are
travel,
get hammers.
You know what I'm saying?
Derek, people are going to get, people don't, I don't know if they're going to go, these kids are going to the public school. I don't know what they're all going to do. But everyone who gets a lot of these kids are going to get a lot of hammers, because they just are in that world. It's very rare that you have that within the same town where everybody knows each other, right? I would say it's like when Wayne Hills and Wayne Valley went, it kind of goes on now there.
Well, Olsen talked about that. You know what I mean? His greatest whatever was those days of high school football where you knew the guy across from you, and it was a healthy rivalry relationship type of conversation. You know
elevate
what I mean?
each other.
It gets everybody better.
It gets everybody elevated. So those are rare instances. All right. Those are rare situations. Not every age group it's going to happen. It might be one or two here or there, but I think of Wayne Hills versus Wayne Valley in the state championship those couple of years, right? When 2016 and 17, those times, those towns were elevated. It was Roger Cutler's at his best. It was Wayne Hills at its best, right? And they were all elevated, all competing. They were all great youth teams at those levels when they were young. and they a lot. Some of them went to DePaul, some went to Depascale, but like it was just there were so many of those kids that there was actually enough to put in private schools and to be good on public schools. So it's those are rare instances, but I think that you get that all the time in Florida and Texas. Like what you see in small microcosms in New Jersey is going on all the time in every environment in Texas, in Florida, in certain parts of California, in certain parts of Georgia, in the South. So like you get that environment happening all the time, and they're like, whoa, like it just raises their level, and it helps them with development. And I think that's that's what forces the D1 coaches into like that, because it's so competitive. It'll force certain guys out of the game. It'll force guys that love that part into the game. It is also what has helped, I think, these guys who are not players, okay, be able to be successful. So they're uber competitive people. They just didn't have like the talent to be great athletes. Great athletes have a hard time understanding how those guys can move up. Okay. It's always in the back of my head, but they have a hard time understanding how those guys can move up. But you have to understand that it's not, they're coaching a physical sport, but their job requires their mind, not their physical capabilities. It's a hard thing for people who played and were successful to understand. Now, when it matches, when a guy is a player and has the mind to coach and all that kind of stuff, Nick Saban's your example, right? Like that's when it all matches up. Not just a guy who was a player, but he also has the mind for it, right? And I think that is what you could see become really, really successful. But these guys who say to themselves, you know what? I already see the handwriting on the wall. Like I could play in college, but I'm really not that great. What do I want to be? I want to be a coach. I want to coach people. Let me do this thing now and develop my mind here so I learn all the things I need to learn. And I am now 5 years in ahead of people. I used to say this about guys who went, even back when I was in high school, I would say, like, I had a friend that he went immediately, he was working in high school and he already had a full-time job in high school. And he knew what he was going to do. As soon as he graduated from high school, he went, like, was just full-time, right? And by the time he was 19, it started his own business in that area. I was still in college between grad school and undergrad till I was 24 years old. That guy had 7 years of making money on me. He was, by the time I got out of grad school, he was already independently a millionaire. All right. So it's not, he knew what he wanted to do. And he went right into it in high school and had a leg up and had his own business by the time he was 19, 20. By the time he was 24, he was already a millionaire. And you know what? Like, I do think that, like, there are things to that, like people becoming very successful by knowing what you want to do. I think there's a beauty in not knowing what you want to do for a long time and trying different things. Everybody's got to know who they are and what is acceptable to them for their lives. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what helps you to be successful in what you choose. But it's really interesting with the coaching thing. I think that in coaching, it's very interesting because players want to go and say, hey, he didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, but after your second or third year of coaching, the fact that you didn't do it doesn't matter anymore.
Correct.
Like I would say your first 2 years, you got a lot to learn, right? But after 3 years in, you've seen this guy teach it. Do you know what it feels like? No, you may not know what it feels like to be great. But, do I know what it's like to run like Usain Bolt? No. I know what it's like to run pretty fast, right? I know what it's like to run pretty fast. I know what's worked in things I've done, and I've known what's worked in athletes I worked with. And things that was coached to me, honestly, like, could have been done better knowing what I know now, right? So it's not that it wasn't right at the time. At the time, that's what people did, right? So, my father always says, put you in the modern era. Yes, you would have ran faster, no doubt about it. But everybody else is running faster too. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like where you stood back then would have changed where you stood now per se, possibly. What would have, if you had that innovation back then, yes, you would have been ahead of the curve. But, if you end up getting around those people, like, hey, my father did plyometrics with me in 8th grade. I didn't know anything about it because we had Bigger, Faster, Stronger magazine. And I could tell you, you know what? The fact that I did plyometrics absolutely gave me an edge. There's when I was developing and hitting puberty and I was doing plyometrics and probably nobody else was, no doubt gave me an advantage in my overall physical development beyond my actual genetics, and then there was a negative to it. My jumps coach in high school was crazy with the plyometrics, Derek. He was an innovative guy, right? And we had a lot of talent in our high school for a small school. And those innovations that we had, he got crazy with it. We were jumping too much. We were jumping all the time off one leg. And all of a sudden, guys started getting like knee injuries and all those kind of things. And it wasn't until my senior year where they backed me off because I had knee injuries not knee injuries like cartilage, but like the front of my knee would always be sore. And I was hurdling and sprinting and jumping, and they backed me off. What's crazy is I did jumping workouts. I never jumped in any meets other than big meets my senior year. Ended up finishing 3rd in group 1 in the long jump, going 21 feet. Okay. So what does that tell you? I was actually doing enough plyometrics and jumping in my other work that I didn't need to jump in meets. See, these are things that we don't know till now, right? Like we didn't know that back then, but like I stopped doing it because I was in pain. Literally, I was in pain. I'm like, I can't jump, coach, at these meets, like these local dual meets, which they've all but gotten rid of in track and field for that same reason. But we used to listen, the coolest thing in high school was these old school 1960s style. We still did it in the 90s. Dual meets where we would go against Mawa and Glen Rock. And then you would come out and you would have a winner. They tried to set it up like football, you know what I'm saying? But eventually what they realized was people weren't winning at the state level because of that.
They were only winning local because that's what they were competing against. It's the same thing with wrestling, guys, that the dual meets are kind of cut out now. It's quad. You bring in 4 teams total. Like you have a host team and then you bring in 3 other guys and you go back and forth, right? Like all of the track meets, it's not just you against somebody else. Like we're bringing in 3. Look, it's why quad scrimmages happen nowadays, right? With football, or you know what I mean? Like, or you have a try, like you're going to bring in numerous teams to kind of get reps and go at it and see other things. And, guys that are, you kind of, sometimes guys will bring, a team from out of region, right? Like if you're down here, you bring a team from the north, or you bring a team from the south, or, if you just see different things and kind of touch it. You want to hit on all those bases the best you can. And you can do that by expanding it. It's not just, hey, we're going to scrimmage this team because I'm familiar with it and we've always done it and we're boys. Like, you got to kind of hit on all those cylinders. I think that helps a lot more. So
when we had Pomo was when we really realized it, because Pomo, when he was younger, like as a sophomore, because we were still kind of doing the dual meets, and he was breaking down he was a freak from the minute, like
freak.
He was just a freak. He was just a natural freak, right? And so what would happen was his sophomore year, like I don't think he placed at the state level, like, but we thought
he would have done better had he competed against higher level guys from the jump.
And
like he was beating everyone he should have.
The dual meets, right? So when he got to be a junior, I said to like we started talking, and we had a great miler as well. Well, this kid he also won.
Right, so it didn't only just benefit one; it benefited multiple guys.
We had like probably among the best athlete crews ever in Saddlebrook. Other than I would say on par with when I was in high school, and my father had that advantage of my brother and me, so our friends came out. And then back in the he had some unbelievable teams in the late 80s and then early like 70s, right? And those were great athlete groups, and it was all friend groups, right? Like basically that's how it works in, high school, that. Like a group of friends are like, hey, and so what I said to him, I said, let's go 0-11 in these dual meets and win the state championships.
Yep.
And my father was like, huh? I was like, the coaches are going to hate you. I said, and they're all his friends, obviously. But the administration might get mad of you. And maybe all these things I was doing probably maybe contributed to all of us end up leaving. But because they didn't like that we were doing this.
Right.
Said, this team could be the best teams. Like these teams, these next 2 years, maybe could be the best teams you've ever had. And we would talk about it. And, it's one of the nice things about having your son. Like we would go to eat after and we would talk about it. And I'm like, these kids are so good. Like at one time I had 5 guys that could jump over 20 feet on the same team in a group 1 school. Like that's ridiculous. Like, I was like, these kids are so talented. And so he agreed to do it. And we would say, and principal would get a call, athletic director, they would call him in. He'd be like, I'm not doing it. Like he would just send his shot putters because it really didn't. Actually, the more they threw in meets, the better it was for them because it's different. Like practice is not the same for a shot putter as a meet, right? So, so they needed to kind of throw in some of these meets, but for a sprinter, it wasn't. So, and a distance runner, same thing. Like they would get worn out. So we would send the shot putters, right? Like John Lanari, who's now at St. Joe's, he would just take the bus with like shot putters come over. And they'd be like, WTF? Like they're like, run it as a practice if you want. We're not coming. So, you guys got the win, and you'd see the paper like these landslide losses. But that team won.
But I think that's also the problem is so guys get so concerned with the wins and the losses and like the development not. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're doing this for a reason. It's not about winning or losing this because we could go do that. But we're going to try and test and see where we're at, right, to gauge for what we can develop or what we can get to in the long run, right? We're going to play a harder team now to see if we can whatever, like in the future. It's got to be a trust the process type of longer term vision than just the wins and losses right now. And I think a lot of guys get caught up in that now world because the pressure to win and do all those other things is there. But if you can ride the wave a little bit and do certain things for the betterment of the future, now you're going to go win state titles. And it's going to be a standard that's there for years to come, not just, hey, we won this year and that's it, right? Like you got to build those things in, even though at the time it's really hard, right? And you're going to take a lot of gripes or whatever, and you're going to go through the shit a little bit, but for the long-term good, you got to do it.
When we with Pomo and then had Lucas Queller also, who was a great athlete, and they were so tightly wound, like their bodies. And I was like, wow, like
gotta loosen up, man. You gotta loosen up a little bit.
No, I'm just saying that like they could, like if you didn't give them enough rest, things would happen. I remember things would happen to them. And
but that's knowing your roster as well, Dave, right? Like and a lot of guys aren't willing to kind of understand that, or this is what it is, or hey, these guys are this way, right? If we just play right, or if we only compete against teams we're gonna rock, like when the tough gets going, their head's gonna dip in the ground because they don't know what it's like to fight through adversity or whatever, all that stuff, right? Like you got to put them in sometimes situations for them to almost fail in order to like succeed in the long run. And if you don't ever put them, or just to figure out what type of player or what type of team it is, like how are they going to handle this situation when they're not the best out there, or there is somebody that can run as fast.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think that that's also the good thing about all the timing stuff. So when kids if they do not run track, they can know where they stand time-wise and certain things. Because I'm just looking at like the Monmouth County Championships and like the winner, and I don't really recognize there's not that many football players that are on.
No, they just don't do it.
They just don't do it in the winter. Now, spring they do. They're more likely to do it in the spring.
A lot of them hoop. A lot of them do other things, or they take that winter off.
Yeah, and it is trained. But
Yes.
it's interesting to see like a lot of the things that like I mean, I'll tell you this: the one school, if they ever had football,
I know
which
CBA is
they
unbelievable.
I mean, they're so good at everything. I'm just
Yep.
like
They're like top 5 wrestling, the whole works.
basketball. Although they
Yeah.
lost, I think in basketball, didn't they? The other
Yeah.
day, which I was
Dude,
shocked.
it's a wild world, dude.
Yeah, obviously. Who did they lose to in basketball the other day? I was trying to figure that out. I saw they lost because they were rolling, and then they're not the number one team anymore. They lost to oh no, they didn't lose to anybody in the Shore, I guess.
I don't know how many of those teams they actually play unless they have to.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
they lost to a Florida team. They lost to Gil St. Bernard's, who's a fantastic team.
And everything.
Yeah, that's I think Morris County, maybe.
Gil St. Bernard. Yeah, it's like up, like I don't know if it's that or maybe even I don't think they're Sussex, but they're like up north, like northwest type.
Oh, see, standing CP basketball. Ugh, you got to be a member. Fucking
Paywalls.
the paywalls are beyond annoying, dude. Like, I mean, I'm sure you just say, screw it, I'll pay the $1 every month. It's almost like my pride won't let me do it because I pay for a lot of things. But
Yeah.
like, I'm just like, I gotta pay to get like like who's ranked. I mean, in the state, like, I can't get that
Right.
for free.
Nope.
You know,
Not when
like,
everything has a price tag on it. It's just like, hey, can I see these videos? No, you got to subscribe. Okay.
yeah, frustrating. But anyway,
All right, we're back
great
tomorrow
pod.
morning.
Back tomorrow morning. That was
Jamie Bolton, who is Coach Martin's partner on his podcast. So you got Dustin Martin the other day, which is the DC side of it. We'll get Jamie Bolton tomorrow morning, who's the offensive coordinator at Rock Hill High School in South Carolina, and they both do that podcast together. So it'll be good balance.
very cool.
Stay warm, buddy.
I ain't going outside unless I have to.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.